I am an American soldier. I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place the mission first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined. Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I'm an expert and I'm a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am Army strong.
There's strong, and there's Army.
Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
All right, this is Jessie. How y'all doing out there today? I hope all of you had a fantastic Christmas. And for those of you celebrating Hanukkah, I hope you're having a great third night of Hanukkah. Yes, I've got some show prep. Just a minute, we'll get there. First thing first, I've got to do a shout out. Scott Harbath, I hope you and your family are having an outstanding Christmas weekend. Kick cancer in the 6 o'clock. You got this, dude. You got it. All right. Yes, I've got some show prep. But that's not all I've got, and believe it or not, there isn't much in my hand. That's because I have a guest on later. As soon as I get through some of this stuff, Dave Brewer's going to join me because I found a topic he's passionate about. And I know you guys had to put up with him covering for me on very short notice, trying to do his own show. So I figured I'd have him back as a guest instead of a last-minute substitute host. All right. So what is going on in the world? Well, in honor of the fact that it is December 26th here in the United States, I did pull a couple of quirky Christmas-related stories. Kim Jong-un bans Christmas, makes North Korea worship his grandmother. Kim Jong-un is the Grinch who stole Christmas. North Korea's tubby tyrant wants the few Christians in the Hermit Kingdom to spread cheer, only to celebrate his grandmother, Kim Jong-suk, not the birth of Jesus. Jong-suk, who was born on Christmas Eve in 1919, was an anti-Japanese guerrilla and communist activist wife of North Korea's first dictator, Kim Il-sung, and the former leader Kim Jong-il's mother. Many pay homage to the sacred mother of the revolution who died under mysterious circumstances in 1949 by visiting her tomb. The deafy dictator is so obsessed with banning Christmas that he even flipped out in 2014 when he found out South Korea planned to erect a huge Christmas tree along the border. Amid threats of all-out war, the tree was never put up. I can't hear. Hang on. I think Dave's got a comment on this one. Give me just a second. What were you trying to get a point across there, Dave?
I was just going to say that if they started erecting a giant Christmas tree on the South Korean side of the DMZ to piss off North Korea, it wouldn't be... There's actually precedent for it. There are two towns located in the DMZ, one on the North Korean side and one on the South Korean side. For the Olympics that happened in Seoul, a flagpole was given to the South Korean town, and then the North Korean side had to match it with a larger flagpole. The South Korean side then erected another flagpole of a larger size still, and then finally North Korea came back with a giant, and I do mean giant flagpole. This thing is huge. It's like 200 feet tall or something like that. And at which point the South Korean side said, all right, you guys can have the tallest flagpole on the peninsula. It's yours. We're not going to keep playing this game of who can top who.
Well, I could just see Kim Jong-un trying to take out that Christmas tree, because evidently he doesn't like Christmas trees.
Yeah, I could see him doing something like that. It wouldn't be the first time that the North Koreans have tried to infiltrate South Korea to spy on the country or do whatever it is, or possibly invade. I'm sure the South Koreans do the same thing to the North Koreans. It's all a matter of making sure you know what your enemy is doing.
Oh, well, espionage. This goes back to a topic I was actually researching earlier for another episode. And espionage, I was actually digging through some of this stuff all the way back during the Kennedy era in the 50s and the 60s and even the 40s on the CIA reading room. Espionage goes back a long way, Dave.
Oh, yes, it does.
I mean, just look at George Washington and his spies.
The spies that nobody knew about until probably about 150 years after the Revolution. I forget when they found the desk that actually referenced George Washington's Secret Six and his whole spy ring that he had working for him during the time of the Revolution.
Right.
We still don't know who some of those assets and spies were. We have guesses on a few of them, including some of the women spies. We know there were several females there, but we don't know exactly who they were.
All right, so Pyongyang used to have more Christians than any other city in Korea and even had a seated Catholic bishop. All that changed by the early 1950s when authorities clamped down on all Christian activities in the country. Human rights groups estimate that between 50 and 70,000 Christians are locked up in prisons that have been compared to concentration camps, simply for their faith. Come on, he's a dictator. What do you expect, folks? All right. I've got a little more Peninsula news here, and I want to try and get through this stuff because I got Dave here because we're going to be discussing the UN resolution that passed on the 23rd of December. I think Obama thinks it was the best Christmas present that didn't fit under the tree. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Maniacal dictator Kim Jong-un could be able to obliterate U.S. air and naval bases in Guam next year after ramping up his nuclear program. Just what we need. The lunatic in the north with a nuclear bomb and a missile that will actually launch on time and go to the right place. That's Houston. We have a problem. Or more like, DC, you got a huge problem. All right. Now it is feared previous estimates vastly underestimate the length of time it would take Pyongyang to successfully develop the bomb. Leading experts have recently admitted nukes are Kim Jong-un's ticket to survival and disarmament through diplomatic channels is a lost cause. His Musudan missiles with a range of 3,500 miles will be ready within a year, according to experts from 38 North. And for those of you who aren't regular listeners to my show and are trying to figure out what 38 North is, that is an organization whose whole purpose in life is to watch satellite feeds and other footage and dig into the details as best they can of the Hermit Kingdom. And if this is true, the North Korean lunatic would be able to strike the U.S. air and naval bases in Guam and any location in South Korea and Japan, as well as swaths of Southeast Asia. Some of the tests are continuing to fail, but given how he does things, trial and error, operational nukes could be developed sooner than previously expected, and in fact probably will be. At this rate, the Musudan intermediate-range ballistic missile, yes, I said intermediate, not intercontinental, could enter operational service sometime next year, much sooner than previously expected. After a decade of keeping it on the back burner, the North Koreans want their Musudan. Now remember, I discussed this on a previous episode, the similarities between the Musudan and some of the Iranian missiles. And the Iranian missiles don't blow up on the launch pad, folks. So, and I've told you, those two are trading partners, and their missiles are lots alike. The analysis is likely to strike fear into South Korea and Japan, which is probably why the two long-standing countries who didn't share any information recently signed a pact saying they will now share intelligence information, at least when it comes to North Korea. Despite objections from Russia and China, the two countries agreed that THAAD should be deployed in South Korea, and THAAD is Terminal High Altitude Aerial Defense, I believe. Hang on, Dave. I muted you.
That's correct. That is, in the realm of air defense, Patriot missiles are good for the stuff that they were sending into Israel from Iraq back in the first Gulf War.
Patriots are well known for taking out those Scuds.
Yes, the Scud missiles. And those have, a pretty decent range on them. Several hundred miles. THAAD can take out stuff from farther away. It can also take out stuff that flies a lot higher than a typical Scud missile.
Well, I guess that's why they call it terminal high altitude.
Yes. It takes them out higher up in altitude. Thing to take note of recently, and by recently I mean within the past couple of years, the U.S. has sent a THAAD unit to Guam. They have deployed to Guam to defend that area. And also, that has also been sold to another country over there in Asia. It wasn't South Korea and it wasn't Japan, but it was another country. For all practical purposes...
I'm pretty sure it wasn't China either.
No, it wasn't China and it wasn't Taiwan. But the whole thing is, some of the countries around there are starting to get a little nervous here about the missiles that North Korea has developed, and also the Chinese capability. China is improving.
So they don't like the lunatic in the north having missiles to play with?
Not at all.
They don't like him. They don't like his toy box?
No. They don't want them playing. They don't want Kim Jong-un playing in their toy box or their sandbox.
So they don't want him blowing up their sandbox.
Exactly.
Got it. Now, of course, China says that we're putting in THAAD to spy on them because of its radar system.
THAAD does have a very good radar system. It has to have a very good radar system to be able to acquire such large missiles coming from such far away. The Patriot radar is pretty far. They use it to cover the whole peninsula. I think. I'm not exactly sure. But...
Well, I know there was at least a couple of Patriot batteries on the peninsula, and I'm not sure how many are on at one time. That's probably classified.
That is. I can tell you a little bit about the American Patriots. I really can't tell you how many South Korean Patriots they have. But from what I've gathered from different sources, South Korea and Japan have both bought into Patriot big time, and even though we keep Patriot batteries in Japan and in South Korea, both countries can probably double that number that they have of their own Patriot batteries that they use for self-defense. There's a lot of coastline to Japan.
Since you are a Patriot expert, and for those of you who aren't aware, Dave Brewer is active duty Army, and he works with Patriot missiles when he puts on the green suit and goes to work. Now, since you are a Patriot expert and you do happen to be on here, is the Patriot missile system an offensive weapon?
No, it is defense.
Is that offensive?
No, it is also defense.
And the proper abbreviation, that actually stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. I think I said aerial, but it's area. So, but they don't tell you in the article I'm reading the range it has, which I think is classified.
Yes, all ranges as far as the distance that the missiles can fly, the distance that the radar can see, the altitude that the missiles can fly, that's all classified.
But Patriots go lower to the ground and THAAD goes higher.
Yes.
It's safe to say that much.
Yeah. Patriot's old motto used to be, if it flies, it dies, which was a little bit of a boast because we don't handle the small rockets, the small mortar shells that get fired. We go a little bit above that. We like cruise missiles, but they are not our preferred prey just because they do get a little hard to hit as low as they fly to the ground.
They go fast.
Yes. And they can dodge behind a mountain, whereas Patriot may not be able to maneuver and follow. But we do, we do take out everything else. Everything from helicopters and airplanes to Scud missiles and drones.
I know you guys can shoot down UAVs. I've seen articles on that one.
Israel actually took out 2 of them within the past year or 2 years.
Using their version of the Patriot, which is called the Iron Dome.
No, the Iron Dome is a separate system from Patriot.
Okay, so they use their Patriot to take out the UAVs.
They use their Patriots that they bought from us. The Iron Dome, like I said before, Patriot doesn't handle the rockets and small mortars that come in. The Iron Dome does. It's meant for lower flying targets.
Oh, so Iron Dome goes even lower.
Yes.
Got it. Well, I'm sure this information will come in handy in the second half of our show, which we're quickly approaching.
Yep.
All right, now let's see if I can get through a few more stories here. As usual, the South Koreans are still arguing over the impeached president, and South Korean protesters use Santa outfits to call for Park's ousting. In the 9th consecutive weekend of protest against Park Geun-hye, organizers said an estimated 250,000 people marched and held a candlelight vigil to seek the embattled president's resignation. South Korea's legislature has impeached Park, but the National Constitution Court must also agree before she can be removed from office. The court has up to 180 days to act, but Park's opponents have urged justices to move swiftly. While awaiting the court's verdict, Park has been stripped of all governing power. Prime Minister Hwang Ko-an is the nation's acting president while the impeachment process continues. Park is immune from prosecution as long as she remains in office, which is probably why she is refusing to resign. Park is South Korea's first female president and is accused of allowing friend Choi Sun-sil, with no official powers, to influence national affairs and solicit millions in illegal donations to private foundations she created. Choi was also said to hold sway over Park personally because she said she was able to allow the president to communicate with her dead mother. Okay, on that one I'm going to call in cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but really. Anyway, so moving right along. Protesters have staged mass gatherings in Seoul across the country for more than 2 months since the scandal broke. On Saturday, protesters changed words to traditional Korean songs to mock Park, while thousands of those in attendance dressed in Santa costumes. So, Santa seems to have an opinion, or at least people in Santa costumes have an opinion on Park Geun-hye. Moving closer to home, Colombia has started talks with NATO, which annoyed their neighbor Venezuela. NATO's agreement to begin talks with Colombia on cooperation leading to full membership was announced Friday, angering neighboring Venezuela. NATO has 28 member states and several programs involving non-member nations. Colombia is one of 5 quote-unquote global partners with the designation NATO Associate, several rungs below cooperation status, and has sought full partnership in the military bloc since 2009. It has numerous hurdles to overcome, notably a reversal of Colombia's constitutional court, which struck down a bill in 2015 permitting the country to seek a higher status in NATO. We filed the request almost 9 years ago for a cooperation agreement, which is the highest position at NATO for countries that are not member states, and they handed me the letter that says Colombia has been accepted to begin conversations on this cooperation, said President Juan Manuel Santos in a speech at a military base in Colombia. Santos' announcement infuriated neighboring Venezuela, whose leftist government has been openly hostile to NATO. And according to the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry, this is an attempt to introduce external factors with nuclear capabilities into our region, whose past and recent actions claim the politics of war violate bilateral and regional agreements. And Colombia is violate bilateral and regional agreements Colombia is party to. So, who knows where this is going. Moving right along, as I've got 3 minutes to break, and I want to try and get through just a couple more stories. Another crazy thing that happened on Christmas Day, World War II had an impact on Christmas. What? 70-year-old war had an impact on Christmas in 2016. No, I'm not reading an article from history. On Sunday, an explosive bomb that was dropped on Augsburg, Germany during World War II prompted a Christmas Day evacuation of 54,000 people. While authorities safely defused the device, the evacuation was the country's largest since the war itself ended over 70 years ago. The bomb, originally dropped by the British Royal Air Force, is one of many unexploded bombs still thought to be lurking under German soil. Dangerous relics of the deadliest war in history. The massive and unprecedented scale of bombings conducted during World War II have led to multiple unexpected discoveries of similar devices, prompting evacuations in Europe over the years. The nearly 2-ton bomb known as a blockbuster was designed to damage buildings up to a mile from the center of the explosion. Blockbusters were the most powerful devices dropped by the Royal Air Force in its raids against Germany, according to The Guardian. This particular one is the largest unexploded bomb ever discovered in the city of Augsburg. So, like I said, World War II killed Christmas in part of Germany. Now, remember your Syrian scorecard. There are 2 things of note that happened over the weekend that pertain to that Syrian scorecard. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a document approving the expansion of the Russian naval base in Tartus, Syria. Russian commercial ships have been observed sailing to and from Syria over the weekend. To remind, a Russian Ministry of Defense document published on Friday said Russia signed an agreement with Syria to expand facilities and territory at the Syrian part of Tartus, where the Russian military port is situated. Reports from October this year indicate Russia is mulling the establishment of a permanent naval base in Syria. Russian naval ships have been making port of call in Tartus since 1977. The upgraded base is reportedly expected to be capable of hosting nuclear submarines and Russia's sole aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov. At the beginning of December this year, the Russian carrier strike group with the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov at the helm was seen 1 kilometer from the port of Tartus. Oh, give me a break. I have no idea what that is. Alright, killed the noise. Seems that article on that had a video it wanted to play. Sorry guys, you're not doing it. I get to control what goes out around here. Not you. While some ships from the group entered the port, there was no confirmation that the Admiral Kuznetsov did the same. According to Bosphorus Strait observers, a number of Russian commercial ro-ro ships made the trips to Syria loaded with military equipment. Folks, I'm willing to bet Russia sticks around in Syria for years, if not decades to come. Now, for those of you who live under a rock, there was a Russian jet crashed into the Black Sea, carrying 92 souls lost aboard. And it was a military plane. It was carrying a band, some reporters, and a few support personnel. Okay? Terrorism was not likely the cause of Tu-154 crash. According to the Kremlin, the Russian military said that divers retrieved 2 elements of the plane's control mechanisms. Russia's Federal Security Service said it was looking into 4 suspected causes of the crash, which do not include terrorism. No signs or facts point to a possible act of terror received at this time, according to a statement from Russia's Federal Security Service. The probe is focusing on pilot error, technical fault, bad fuel, and a foreign object in the engine. Vigils were held in Russia on Monday after Russian President Vladimir Putin declared a day of mourning. More than 3,000 people are racing to find the remaining bodies and debris in a massive operation that includes 45 vessels, planes, helicopters, and drones, along with divers and remote-operated deep-water machines. Thankfully, The crash itself is in a relatively shallow area. It's only 25 meters. And that's about 1 mile offshore. So that's not, I know 25 meters sounds deep, but trust me, they have not, as of my last check, located the black box recorders. Alright, I know we're just a bit past the break. We are going to take that commercial break, and then I will see you on the other side, finish up my articles. We are going to run long today. I'm going to just warn you. We're running long today, and that's okay, because I already checked with Stafford, and he's taking the day off. So he said I could have his time if I wanted it, and given the article, the stuff we've got on Israel, we're going to take it, at least part of it. So, in just a moment, we are going to take that commercial break, and I will see you on the other side.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writer's bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-757-2782. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-757-2782. That's 877-757-2782.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
right. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me over that commercial break. Couple more articles, and then we're going to get to what Dave Brewer's actually here hanging around waiting to talk about. He's been chomping at the bit, can you tell? All right. Well, not everyone had the weekend off. U.S. and coalition military forces continue to attack Daesh in Syria and Iraq yesterday. And this article is to say that dated December 26th. Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve reports there were 14 fighter aircraft strikes conducted in Syria near Al-Shadid. 2 airstrikes engaged 2 Daesh tactical units. And they destroyed 2 vehicles and a heavy machine gun. Near Araka, 11 strikes engaged 8 Daesh tactical units, destroying 11 fighting positions, 4 tactical vehicles, and a heavy machine gun, a car bomb, and damaged a supply route. Near Manbij, a strike engaged a Daesh tactical unit, destroying a fighting position. Strikes in Iraq. Fighter and bomber aircraft conducted 4 strikes in Iraq, coordinated with and in support of Iraq's government. Near Mosul, 2 strikes against Daesh tactical units and destroyed 6 fighting positions, a land bridge, 2 tactical vehicles, 2 buildings, a heavy machine gun, 2 mortars, suppressed a Daesh tactical unit and 2 mortar teams, and damaged a supply route. Near Rawa, a strike destroyed a front-end loader. Near Sinjar, remember the Sinjar mountain where the Yazidis fled to? Yeah. Near Sinjar, a strike destroyed a Daesh warehouse. Task force officials define a strike as 1 or more kinetic events that occur roughly in the same geographic location to produce a single, sometimes cumulative effect. Therefore, officials explain a single aircraft delivering a single weapon against a lone Daesh vehicle is 1 strike, but so is multiple aircraft delivering a dozen weapons against buildings and vehicles, and a weapon system in a compound, having a cumulative effect of making those targets harder or impossible for Daesh to use. Officials do not report the number or type of aircraft employed in a strike, the number of munitions dropped in each strike, or the number of individual munition impact points against a target. Come on, guys, they gotta keep some secrets. Strikes are reported as part of Operation Inherent Resolve. So, coalition nations that have conducted strike in Syria include the United States, Australia, Bahrain, Canada, France, Jordan, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom. And let's see if I can decipher this last word. Coalition nations that have conducted strikes in Iraq include the United States, Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Jordan, Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. So, just because you were sitting around eating your turkey or your ham doesn't mean the members of the United States Armed Forces were enjoying the same luxury. And at that point, I would like to say thank you to the men and women of the Armed Forces who are away from their friends and families serving overseas. And I have Ash Carter's... You get it pulled up. I've got Ash Carter's message to the troops. I just didn't get it loaded before we went on air. Here we go.
Hi everyone, it's Secretary of Defense Ash Carter here in Kabul headquarters in Afghanistan to thank our troops for their service this holiday season. 2016 was another busy year for the department. From the fight to deliver ISIL a lasting defeat, to our ongoing mission to build a brighter future here in Afghanistan, to standing strong in the Asia-Pacific and in Europe, to our rescue efforts during Hurricane Matthew, the men and women of the U.S. military and our civilian workforce stepped up around the world, as you always do. We've been busy on the home front as well. We unveiled new initiatives to benefit our military families and improve our recruitment efforts to continue building the force of the future. We launched new programs to strengthen our digital defenses and keep us on the cutting edge of military technology. We welcomed new service chiefs and combatant commanders and we celebrated our military's finest athletes as they ran, swam, and jumped to victory in the 2016 Rio Olympics. So it's been an incredible year, and I want to thank all of you and your families for your service. You're doing one of the noblest things a person can do, defend our country and make a better world for our children. So I want to wish you and your families a blessed holiday season and a happy new year. See you in 2017.
Now, along the same vein, I've got the United States Commandant of the Marine Corps with his message to the troops. And I want you guys to actually pay attention to what he says, because I think it's cool. Number one, he included his wife, and two, listen to the wording at the end.
The holiday season is a time for family, friends, and reflection. During this special time, Ellen and I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you and your families for your service, your commitment, and your sacrifice.
No matter where the season finds you, know that you are in our thoughts and prayers, not just during the holidays, but every day.
We particularly want to recognize our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and civilians who are deployed. Thanks for who you are, what you do, and what you represent.
We also know that our service members aren't the only ones who serve and sacrifice. Their families do too. While you may be away from home this holiday season, you should know that what you're doing makes a difference.
So to our entire military family, both at home and around the world, Ellen and I wish each and every one of you a safe and happy holiday season. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
I love it. They weren't afraid to say Merry Christmas. Now, of course, around here, it's Happy Hanukkah, but hey, I can take that. At least people aren't afraid to say Merry Christmas anymore. I definitely hate it when people are afraid to wish someone a Merry Christmas. And I don't expect every store clerk to wish me a Happy Hanukkah. I'm not that stupid. And I don't get offended if on Christmas Eve a store clerk wishes me a Merry Christmas. I either smile and say thank you, same to you, or if it's someone who knows me, I might get a little snarky. If it's someone who knows better, yeah, I'm going to say something. But, hey, the store clerk, they don't know me from Adam's house cat. So, they can say whatever they want. It was meant in good faith. Alright, moving right along. President Obama spoke to some service members at a Marine Corps base in Hawaii. Of course, he had to pick the one in Hawaii because that makes the trip an official trip and he doesn't have to pay for all of it. And he says it's one of his favorite things to do because it's one of those circumstances we get a chance not just to say thank you to our incredible men and women in uniform, but oftentimes we get a chance to see some families. The soon-to-be outgoing Commander-in-Chief is quoted as saying, and the President said he is thankful for the, quote, unbelievable service members have rendered the country. And as he does every Christmas, he called some of the folks that are stationed overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, some very remote spots, some of them who, as we speak, are carrying out missions to defeat Daesh and protect us from all manner of threat. All right. We have one more military-related story, and then we will get to the best Christmas present not under Obama's tree, and that is a Toys for Tots update. Remember we were playing those commercials for a while? Well, here's a little news clip about the program.
I'm Kevin Smith, United States Marine Corps Reserves, and I'm the Toys for Tots coordinator for this region. This program has been in existence since 1947. When a Marine Corps major and his wife found that they felt like they should be doing more in the community. And since that date, for the last 70 years almost, we've been donating toys, and that's the history of this program. And since then, we've accumulated millions of toys that have been contributed throughout the program. We have dozens of volunteers who come in each and every day who help sort toys. They stuff bags, they count stuff for us, and we just couldn't do it without the community partnership, and that's probably the biggest piece that allows or enables this program to be successful. As a service member, I think all of us, when we sign up, we take an oath to protect the nation. And I think the greatest thing that we as service members do and give is that we make sacrifices. The Marine Corps is an organization that has fought many, many battles, many wars, and I think it's something that I'm proud of, that we take pride in being able to give back in our local communities. When we're not serving in war, when we're at peace, we're able to still give back.
I think that was a great piece talking about Toys for Tots and how military members don't just carry arms into battle, but they also do support and help their local communities. And both Ash Carter's and the Marine Toys for Tots program pointed out how men and women in the armed forces help not just foreign lands, but they do help those right here in this country. All right, moving right along. The best present Obama didn't find under his Christmas tree has to be the UN Security Council Resolution 2334. Now, the United States did officially abstain from this vote, but normally they would have vetoed it, which would have blocked the thing, because the United States is what they call a permanent member to the Security Council and has veto power. And if any of the permanent members veto it, the resolution dies on the vine and goes nowhere, folks. So we had the power to stop this resolution. And instead, we let a number of countries, I believe it was, Dave, who sponsored this resolution?
I believe there was about 4 or 5 countries that sponsored it. Egypt had originally been one of the sponsors, I believe, and then they withdrew. There was President-elect Donald Trump got wind of this, and he did intervene with the Egyptians so that they at least were not sponsoring the bill. But there's a lot of members to the Security Council of the UN, and there's about 12 of them I know that Israel, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, specifically recalled to Jerusalem. He recalled their ambassadors to Jerusalem to give them a reprimand. One of them was Ukraine.
I don't think he recalled the ambassadors just to reprimand them. I think he recalled them.
Well, now he's cut off relations with about 10 or 12 countries.
That's a scary step.
That's usually, hey, we're going to go to war with you step. But seeing as how these countries are in Europe, and Israel does not want to start prosecuting a war on a country on another continent or half continent away, depending on how you look at things, I doubt it's going to come to arms. Thing that did pick up in the news, the Ukrainians have said that their own diplomats said that, and they've told the Israelis this, yes, they sponsored the resolution or they voted for this resolution that was against Israel, but they were originally going to just leave the whole matter alone until they got a phone call from President Joe Biden, or from the Vice President Joe Biden. The Vice President in his office has denied that they intervened in Ukraine and urged Ukraine to vote for the resolution.
Well, that backs up the story I've got here that said the Obama administration not only failed to defend Israel from this harassment at the UN, it cooperated behind the scenes, encouraging it.
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that, that's exactly what the U.S. did, was behind the scenes, they were involved in getting this resolution created and passed. America officially says no. But it seems like there's evidence when you talk to other people involved that the U.S. was involved in not just, saying, hey, we think we should have this resolution about this subject. They said, here's how you should write this resolution. And they were involved in the actual writing, formation, and creation of this document.
Whoa, so they didn't just try and whip votes for it. They
created it. Now, what I think happened here is that, just to give you a little more background, the president-elect Donald Trump has made clear his intentions to move the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv from Tel Aviv, Israel, to Jerusalem. This would be important for a couple reasons. Jerusalem, under the original UN mandate, was supposed to be an international city, just completely under the governance of the UN. During the course of war and Israel's fight for independence and such things, the state of Israel has taken control of Jerusalem, and they have annexed it as part of their country. That annexation has been regarded as being illegal by the rest of the international community. I say it's conquered territory, guys. You don't give conquered territory back unless you provide an incentive to, whatever country conquered you. Such things have happened. Israel has given up land before. They gave up the Sinai Peninsula, which had also been an occupied territory, but they gave that back to Egypt so they could have peace with Egypt. Anyways, Jerusalem right now, as far as Israel is concerned, is the official capital of their country. As far as the United States and everybody else is concerned, Tel Aviv is the capital of Jerusalem, and that is where they keep all their embassies. But I guarantee you, from having been in Jerusalem, the Knesset, or rather the Parliament of Israel, meets in Jerusalem.
Well, you can use the term Knesset. You just got to define it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And one of the ambassadors that Israeli, some of the ambassadors of the countries that were recalled kind of left me in shock. It was New Zealand and Senegal, to name a few.
Some of these countries you have to wonder is like, how does New Zealand on the other side of the world, quite literally, how much business, I wonder how much business they actually do with Israel, but also New Zealand is a democratic country. They are still, I think, technically a colony of the British Empire.
They are.
So, that being the case, why are they coming out against Israel? They're a pretty decent country, but then again, I've been surprised before by which countries have signed on to different resolutions that were anti-Israel in the past. Now, some of these resolutions that you'll see play out on the world stage if you follow the politics enough. They'll have a resolution or something against some country, and a bunch of the countries, the member states of the UN, will vote on it, and they'll say, yes, we approve this resolution. And the resolution sometimes goes nowhere. It doesn't have there's no real teeth to it. There's no real veracity to it. Nothing to enforce it.
Well, I found the 4 sponsors of the bill: New Zealand, Senegal, Malaysia, and Venezuela.
Okay, so Venezuela's the one that Hugo Chavez used to be the leader of?
I believe so, Brewer.
Okay.
And Netanyahu claims to have been abandoned by his longtime ally, the United States, yet Israel is still the world's top recipient of U.S. military aid after inking a record $38 billion 10-year deal in September. And Friday's vote, thankfully, will have no bearing on this support. The resolution had been lauded by Arab partners, including the Palestine Authority, President Mahmoud Abbas, and King Jordan's Abdullah II.
Yeah.
Egypt leader Abdel Fattah Sisi took the opposite view, delaying the vote after pressure from Israel and has sought U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Trump, of course, criticized the vote, tweeting that things would be different after he takes office on January 20th. The decision taken at the UN yesterday was part of the swan song of the old world bias against Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu was quoted as saying, "We are entering a new era," as President-elect Trump said yesterday, and this is going to happen much quicker than people think. In this new era, there was a high price for those trying to harm Israel.
I'm very glad to hear that. Just to give everybody a little more background, as I'm sure the listeners are well aware, the Palestinians and Israelis have been fighting ever since the creation of the State of Israel. They were fighting before the creation, and the creation just exacerbated it. Yes. The creation of the State of Israel was rejected by all of the Arab states. Keep in mind, at the time of the creation of the State of Israel, there was a partition plan offered up by the UN to essentially divide the area of Palestine into 8 sectors. 3 sectors went to what's now Israel. 3 sectors went to the Arabs. 1 sector was a tiny little enclave called Jaffa, which is just south of Tel Aviv. Jaffa was a city on the Mediterranean in place before Tel Aviv was founded.
And Chile and Peru recalled their ambassadors from Israel. And Chile is a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council and is home to one of the world's largest Palestinian communities outside the Middle East, as well as a sizable Jewish community. This leaves me scratching my head.
Yeah, it just depends on which group is holding political sway in that country at whatever given time. We've seen it here in America. We've got a lot of Palestinians here.
This I can back. The United Nations Security Council and President Barack Obama have called for a ceasefire because there have been rockets going off recently, and it just hasn't made the news, to allow relief to reach Gaza's 1.8 million Palestinians, followed by negotiations to end hostilities. Efforts led by Secretary of State John Kerry last week failed to achieve a breakthrough since Hamas is shunned by the United States and Israel as a terrorist group. Kerry's mediation has been facilitated by Turkey, Qatar, and the Palestinian Authority, President Mahmoud Abbas. Now, we are going to have to hold those thoughts, folks, until we pay those bills, but we will come back with more on this resolution when I see you on the other side.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a four-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a four-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-757-2782. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-757-2782. That's 877-757-2782.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
All right, thank you for hanging in there with me on the extended version of Jesse's POV. And just to remind my listeners, I am not alone. I've got Dave Brewer on with me as a guest because, well, I found a topic he was passionate about and said, well, why don't you come help me explain it on air, Dave? Okay. So, all right, what exactly did this Christmas present for Obama contain?
So, the main issue here is that Israel has, for many years, been building settlements. These settlements are kibbutzes, or they're essentially communities where a kibbutz was a community of Israelis established in an area that could also defend itself. It was part socioeconomic, part defense. The easy way that the Israelis, and by that I mean the Jews that founded Israel, they found an easy way of defending the land by not just occupying the land, but by working the land and setting up a community that could defend itself from any would-be aggressors or attackers. So now, for a long time, Israel has a history of building settlements to push out its borders, is what they're doing. And when they conquered, or when they took occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, they also got control of Jerusalem, and they have started building settlements on the eastern side of Jerusalem. This is to secure their claim to the area. If you go,
all right, now wait a minute, Dave. You're losing people here. What side of Jerusalem is officially the Israeli side, and what side is the quote-unquote Palestinian side?
Okay.
West Jerusalem
would be more Israel.
East is more Palestinian.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to get a scorecard going here because you can't tell the players in some of these diplomatic kerfluffles without a scorecard.
I understood, especially considering that originally Jerusalem, under the partition plan, was supposed to be an international city governed by the UN. It's not anymore, folks. And Israel's looking to maintain its hold and its position on Jerusalem. They
mostly want what I call the world's most contested piece of real estate, the Temple Mount.
That, yes. And
I mean, I'm sorry, but that is the world's most contested piece of real estate on the planet.
Temple Mount is, of course, home to one of the holiest sites in Islam. They've
got the Dome of the Rock, and then Israel, the Jews claim it because of the Western Wall and the original 2 temples, and then the Christians claim it because, well, Jesus was there.
Yes.
So you got 3 religions fighting over one piece of land, folks. This gets interesting. And that's why I said you got to have your scorecard. I know this is a new scorecard for you, but I think this one will look a lot simpler than who's propping up Assad and the Syria Middle East scorecard.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into all the interplay that goes on between the Dome of the Rock on one side of the wall, the Western Wall, and then all the Jews praying on the other side of the wall. It gets crazy. There's a lot of politics there. We could spend probably a couple more shows on it. That might be a good Saturday.
Well, maybe we'll have to do it record it for a Saturday Slowdown, Dave.
We just might. But anyways, we digress. To come back to it, the resolution calls for a cessation of violence, of all terrorist activity. It calls for Israel, and this is the kicker for Israel, to stop immediately building any more settlements and to withdraw the settlements that they have built that are beyond their 1967 borders. Now, this seems like, okay, well, why don't they
First, I got to remind you, listeners, the whole country of Israel is about the size of the state of New Jersey. We ain't talking about something the size of Texas here, folks. We're talking about the size of New Jersey. And if you look at a U.S. map, New Jersey's pretty tiny.
Yes. And West Bank and the Gaza Strip would probably compromise about, say, I'll ballpark it between 30 and 40% of Israel.
So basically they'd be giving up about 30 to 40% of their land if they gave up Gaza and West Bank.
Yes, but now that land is home to other people. It's been home to the Palestinians for quite some time. The thing was, when the original partition plan was put forward by the UN, the Arab states did not accept it. They had a legal justification in there, and they just said, no, we're not going to accept it. What became the Israeli state, the Jews, they said, hey, we're taking it. We're taking what we can get. And after the War of Independence and then the 6-Day War, Israel gained a lot of territory. And so, like I said, now they want Israel to give it back. And Israel's of the opinion, we don't need to give it all back. Some of it they would love to get rid of, because the Gaza Strip is nothing but a thorn in Israel's side. They tend to send a lot of rockets into Israel from the Gaza Strip.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave Brewer, but don't Hamas and Hezbollah pretty much rule Gaza?
Yes, they do.
And for those of you keeping up with your scorecards, who supports Hezbollah? Iran. Mm-hmm. Iran. Did you catch that? Iran! Hezbollah is funded by Iran. And its cousin is Hezbollah's kissing cousin is Hamas.
Yes. Hamas has got a real good foothold down there in the Gaza Strip. On the West Bank, you still have the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, running things. But I assure you, they still butt heads with Hamas, because Hamas has been trying to make sure they get... They're competing factions of the same side, is what it amounts to. But Hamas is a terrorist organization, and the PLO is, well, they're not held in high regard right now, especially the current Mohammed Abbas, is it? Yeah. I know the Israelis do not hold him in high regard. I think they held Yasser Arafat in higher regard. But that's another story.
Yeah, they felt they could actually negotiate with someone like Arafat, who was willing to be reasonable.
He was willing to be reasonable, and he was also willing to keep the status quo in place. The status quo, ladies and gentlemen, is that you have the land that Israel took control of through the course of these wars. And then you have the Palestinians in that land, and the Palestinians want their own state now. But Yasser Arafat wasn't pushing the issue of getting them their own state. He found an advantage to keeping them in essentially a permanent quasi-state and keeping them listed as refugees. The UN still keeps a tally of the refugees from the Palestinians from the time of the War of Independence.
Now, hang on a minute here. First of all, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute, Dave. I can see Palestinians wanting their own state, just like the Kurds want their own state. I wish I could say that I could see either one coming to pass soon. Unfortunately, no, I don't see it happening in either case. I'd like to hope so, but if wishes were fishes?
Yeah, we'd all be millionaires, and then nobody would be a millionaire.
And then, well, nobody'd go hungry, that's for sure.
Yes. But the Kurds are going to be doing good to have established, areas where they can live at least in peace. And they kind of have that in parts of Iraq. Mainly because Iraq don't want to go messing with the Kurds right now because they need the Kurds to help them out with other things like Mosul. Long story. To get back to Israel, with the UN calling for an end to these settlements, it makes any activity that Israel does over the 1967 borders illegal. And it would mean, but this resolution doesn't have a way of implementing what it says. It doesn't have a way to force Israel to pull back. So Israel can keep occupying the land because there's nobody.
So this resolution is a paper tiger?
It is. But diplomatically and legally, it's got a few...
It's got a few thorns.
Definitely a few thorns. The first is that, they recognize East Jerusalem as being part of the occupied territories. This distinction here is important because now you have, if there's East Jerusalem, there must be a Western Jerusalem. And they do not make mention of West Jerusalem at all in this resolution. But you can infer that if the Palestinians don't have governance of it, and the UN doesn't have governance of it because they've never really governed Jerusalem, well, then that leaves the Israelis. So Donald Trump's plan to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem might still have a chance. It's not got a very large chance.
So they closed the door, but Trump may be able to blow open a window?
Yes, he might.
Well, I think Host Kitty has an opinion on this whole resolution. Let me see if I can get it pulled up, because he definitely gave me an opinion earlier today.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
I told you he gave me an opinion earlier today.
Yes, he did. I gotta say, I agree with him. This resolution stinks. I tell you, Middle East.
Do you think this resolution is Obama trying to screw up what Trump wants for his foreign policy and trying to leave a minefield for Trump to have to untangle and defuse before he can do anything and keep him bogged down in the quagmire?
I'd have to agree with that. It's not uncommon for the outgoing president to leave a few surprises for the incoming president, especially when they're on opposite sides of the party line.
I don't recall W doing that to Obama.
I don't know that he did. I know that I think when Clinton left office, there was all of a sudden a number of rules and regulations got passed about workplace safety and EPA rules that were left for George W. to deal with.
Don't even get me started on the EPA. They wanted to govern how much rainwater falls on your property.
I know.
And regulate the puddle in your backyard. The Israelis make more sense than the EPA, Dave.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So there are stink bombs that are left by presidents for the incoming president to handle. Sometimes it may just be something that's not resolved. The basis for Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem from the U.S. standpoint is that the U.S. has had on the books a law recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel ever since about the mid-90s. It's been in place, but it's never been enforced. It's one of these laws that we passed.
Really? There's a law in the books? I'll have to look that up while you keep chatting about it.
Yeah, there is a law in the books. And it's been in place for years. Congress passed it. The president signed on it. The current president at the time signed on it. But it was never enforced. And in both parties' platforms for the past several election cycles, they have had on their party platform the recognition of Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. Both platforms have the same writing in their platforms. Or both parties have the same language in their platforms. I've read it. But nobody's been willing to act on it because they've been trying to negotiate a settlement, a peace settlement between the Palestinians and the Israelis. The issues that keep a final status solution from occurring are the right of return of the Palestinians, the actual borders for the country of Israel, and what's to be done about Jerusalem. The Palestinians have wanted East Jerusalem, and I put that in quotes, as their capital. I don't think we need to go dividing this city. We don't need to make another Berlin. The Palestinians have, with the right of return, they want their refugees to be able to come back to their homes. And if they don't come back, they want them compensated. Like I said,
I found what you were discussing.
Ah, yes.
And it was the Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1985. It was the 104th Congress. And it was an act to provide for the relocation of the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and for other purposes. Be it enacted that the Senate of the House of Representatives of the United States of the American Congress assemble, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking to see...
So that was 1995?
1995.
And that was back
and Congress makes the following findings. Each sovereign nation under national and international law may designate its own capital. Since 1950, the city of Jerusalem has been the capital of the State of Israel. The city of Jerusalem is the seat of Israel's president, parliament, and Supreme Court, and the site of numerous government ministries and social and cultural institutions. The city of Jerusalem is the spiritual center of Judaism and is considered a holy site by members of other religious faiths. From 1948 to 1967, Jerusalem was a divided city, and Israeli citizens of all faiths as well as Jewish citizens of all states were denied access to holy sites in the area controlled by Jordan. In 1967, the Jerusalem was reunited during the conflict known as the Six-Day War. Since 1967, Jerusalem has been a united city administered by Israel, and persons of all religious faiths have been guaranteed full access to holy sites within the city. And at the time, this was the 28th consecutive year that Jerusalem has been administered as a unified city in which rights of all faiths have been respected and protected. That was as of 95. So how many more years since then? Dave, if you want to do the math while I keep reading, be my guest.
That sounds like about 21 years since that was passed.
Folks, did I mention he's a walking calculator? That was supposed to take at least a minute.
No.
Not in 1990, the Congress unanimously adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution 106. It declares that Congress strongly believes that Jerusalem must remain an undivided city. In 1992, the United States Senate and House of Representatives unanimously adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution 113 of the 102nd Congress to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the reunion of Jerusalem. And the list goes on for a little bit longer. However, the timetable in Section 3, the third item is, the United States Embassy in Israel should be established in Jerusalem no later than May 31st, 1999. I think we're past 99. I mean, I'm no good at math, Dave, but 2017 sounds a lot bigger than 1999.
Yeah, it does, by about 18 years. Hi. But anyways, so there you have it. We said Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but we've not officially moved the embassy there. We've had plenty of time to do so. To give you a little background, back in 1995, Bill Clinton was President of the United States. Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House of Representatives. Yes, he was at that point Speaker of the House. He wasn't when Bill Clinton first came into office. But that being the case, you had the Democrats and the Republicans in bipartisanship agreements agreeing on where the capital should be. Now we come, up here to 2016, about to be 2017, and still Bill Clinton didn't make it happen. George W. Bush didn't make it happen. Barack Obama did not make it happen. The capital, I
gotta say, W had his hands full.
W definitely had his hands full, and he was trying to keep some semblance of peace going in Israel. The Camp David Accords, you can either take them or leave them. He was trying, folks. I don't know how much success he was having. I think Bill Clinton had a little more success with the Oslo Accords back in the 90s. He at least got about 8 years of quiet between the two sides.
Yeah, at least there wasn't another full-blown intifada. I mean, there's always a little, we're going to lob some rockets.
Yeah, but the Oslo Accords definitely ended with an intifada. That was about the year 2000, 2001. If y'all remember when Israel was suffering suicide bombers at the rate of a couple times a week and then almost daily for several months, which is part of the reason why they built a wall between them and the Palestinians. Getting back to lines and walls, Armistice Line of 1967, sometimes called the Green Line. Actually, the line goes back much earlier, about a decade earlier. And this line the reason why it's called the Armistice Line is during the course of the War for Independence, for what Israel calls the War of Independence, this was when hostilities stopped. This is where all the military units were lined up against one another, and everybody said, okay, do not cross this line. So the Arab states weren't crossing the Green Line, neither was Israel. And this was an armistice.
Is that thing really called the Green Line? Because there's a Green Line in Cyprus, too.
Yes, it is called the Green Line. It's got a couple names. Armistice Line, Green Line, same thing. It's very similar to the 38th parallel up there by the DMZ. It's the point where the two armies stopped. Or however many armies were involved, they stopped and they looked at one another and they said, okay, we're going to quit fighting one another. It was not supposed to be there to say, hey, this is the final state. This is on the eastern side, that territory now belongs to Palestinians. On the western side, that territory belongs to the Israelis. And in fact, in the armistice, the language specifically says it is not the final determination of territory. But now that line has come.
All right, question. If the armistice, which I'm guessing was worked out by the UN, said the line is not the final determination of territory, how did they get away with using it in their own writings years later as the final determination of territory?
Bad legal research?
Or just doing the old cherry pick?
Potentially, yes, cherry picking what they want. The part of the reason why...
I mean, the 38th parallel seems pretty permanent at the present, too, so...
Yeah, it does. When you start talking politics, especially on an international scale, and you've got two competing sides what's going to determine the lines is most often than not, the initial assessment is going to be who has armies where. And that's what this line is the western side of this line was where Israel had the armies. The eastern side is where the Arabs had their armies. They stopped. What one of the other parties to this armistice, Jordan, wanted was to do land swaps on either sides to probably, reach a peace agreement. Jordan was looking to actually get control of the West Bank, and they did actually have control of the West Bank there for a little bit in the past, since the whole partition plan came into being. But they wanted part of this land, and that's why they said, hey, we're not going to say that this armistice line determines territory, because we want part of that territory on the other side of the line, and we think we can negotiate for it. The Jordanians have actually been fairly decent in negotiating with Israel. They weren't the first ones to make peace with Israel. That was left to the Egyptians. But the Jordanians, take them or leave them, folks. They sometimes, they will play ball. And they may not be as democratic state as Israel is, but they have no love of the terrorists further north. And all those other terrorists that seem to populate the region.
All right. Well, as interesting as this is, Dave, it's time for our last commercial break. So that means you got no more than 30 minutes to wrap this up.
Sounds good.
And folks, we are going to pay them bills, and I will see you on the other side.
Totally okay if you wanna. You can play dead if you wanna. Forget what they said if you wanna. Turn your back on the country needing you right now, but I don't wanna.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a four-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call. But I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a four-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-757-2782. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychecks right now. 877-757-2782. That's 877-757-2782.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Alright, thank y'all for hanging in there with me while we paid those bills. And yes, you are listening to the extended version of Jesse's POV because, no offense, this resolution, UN resolutions that the Security Council passed, or as I'm calling it, Obama's best Christmas present that wasn't under the tree. And just as a reminder, here is host Kitty's opinion on the matter. Yes, he doesn't like this thing. Not one bit. Now, Dave, you were trying to give us a little bit of a history lesson here and explain why this thing is a disaster, especially if Trump actually wants to follow the U.S. law that we were discussing and move the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yeah, so this resolution, while it's not a U.S. law, it is a resolution from the UN, which the U.S. is a member state of, and we do have to abide in part by certain things that the UN does. Resolutions we do kind of have to abide by. Treaties that are signed by member states are enforced by the UN. So anytime that somebody violates a treaty and then sanctions are leveled on one of the countries involved, then that person violating of the treaty or the agreement faces sanctions or what have you. They face action by the international community. Calling on the cessation of settlements makes it so that if Israel is now open to be sanctioned by the UN. So the UN now has the parties involved now have recourse to put sanctions on Israel. They could stop trading with Israel. They could put an embargo on them, such things like that. However, that language does not exist in this document to specify what could be done or even that it could be done. So there's no enabling mechanism. The other big thing is it ties the U.S.'s hands in moving the embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Simply because, we have East Jerusalem and, that's part of the occupied territories. And we want everybody on this side of the armistice line. So it makes it difficult for Trump, for the president-elect to then move the capital. But, like I said, there's still that window there because they recognized East Jerusalem. And if you have an east, you probably have a western half of the city. So Trump may still be able to move the embassy to Jerusalem proper. Just not the eastern half, ladies and gentlemen. He may put it right outside the old city. I don't know. But there's,
I could actually see Trump trying to do that. Dave, I could see him just crazy enough to do it. Now, I think if he does try something like that, there's going to be
a lot of blowback.
Oh yeah, Intifada for step 1, Hezbollah going cuckoo, Iran going cuckoo. We won't even get into what Jordan, Egypt.
And the whole reason for this, for everybody else going crazy if the U.S. moves embassy, is that you are now imposing a final settlement, a final status settlement on the situation without having gone through the negotiations. Ladies and gentlemen, the negotiations have gone nowhere since the founding of the State of Israel. It's just been one of those things. Either the Arabs don't want to play today, or they just want to not even acknowledge Israel's existence, or when they do,
and then of course
Hezbollah
is backed by Iran, and what does Iran?
Oh, they want the destruction of Israel.
Oh yeah, and of course every Friday in mosque they chant "Death to America, death to Israel."
Yes, and
so I mean, come on, you get Hezbollah and its kissing cousin Hamas, and I don't. No offense, folks. How can you negotiate with people who want to blow themselves and their children up to make a point? That sounds more like cuckoo.
And even if you were willing to negotiate with them, just because you have nobody else to negotiate with, the whole idea is that now the UN has come in and said, here's your final status agreement. Here's what's going to be in play. They didn't let the warring parties actually settle out the status of, what happens to the city of Jerusalem.
So the UN basically shoved what they wanted down Israel's and Palestine's throat.
Yes. They said...
And for those of you who are wondering, Palestine is a member of the UN, but they are not recognized as an independent state. They just have a representative at the UN.
Yes, and even that was very much contested by Israel, because Israel has said that they will not recognize Palestine until they get a final status agreement, is what this amounts to. They want an agreement on the right of return. They want an agreement on the borders. They want an agreement on Jerusalem. The right of return is chancy. It's very dicey for Israel because you have all these people who, for 2 or 3 generations now, have, they are the progeny of the Palestinians that left Palestine, either before the war or during the course of the war. And these people, they got out for, good reason. It's a war zone. They don't want it. But since they'd left, there's nobody, except for the UN, there was nobody to say, hey, this property is still theirs. And if they return now, most of that generation is getting long in the tooth. They may or may not return. However, their kids, since they are kids of Palestinians, they are still considered Palestinian refugees. They were born of a refugee and they are now refugees. So their population has grown. Hence why the dispute between the final determination of the borders and the right of return. If Israel just lets Palestine have the right of return outright, then there's a couple million more people that will move into the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and both places are pretty damn crowded right now. I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. But both areas are heavily populated, and hence why Israel wanted a determination on the final borders of their state and an Arab or Palestinian state. This way they could say, okay, these people on this side of the line, they can come back and be Israeli citizens, or they can just give it up and go become Palestinian citizens. They can essentially move their home from one side of the line to the other. Or you could have them say, oh, well, no, they get this piece of land back, on this side of the line. That piece of land on the eastern side of the line may also be occupied by somebody else now, in which case they would be due compensation.
Well, what if they wanted their land back and weren't willing to accept compensation. Does the original charter cover that?
I'm sure it does somehow.
Didn't read enough of it. I didn't have time for that much show prep either, Dave. All right. So, in summary, the UN is trying to shove what it thinks is right down Israel's throat, and I found a rather interesting article while Dave was keeping you folks amused. Yeah, that's kind of my gig around here. I always pull up some kind of article on something. Let me just find the right article, because I got one too many tabs open, which doesn't surprise anybody. Israel has reportedly suspended ties with 12 UN Security Council nations. Israel's foreign ministers reportedly suspended all working ties with 12 of the UN Security Council countries that voted to pass a resolution urging Israel to halt building settlements on occupied Palestinian land.
So 12, that's not
it. And it says foreign ministers and ambassadors from Britain, France, China, Russia, Japan, Ukraine, Angola, Egypt, Uruguay, Spain, Senegal, and New Zealand will not be received in Israel's foreign ministry amid the suspension. They will also not be granted an audience with Netanyahu. The U.S. abstained from the unexpected UN vote on Friday, which has further increased tensions between Netanyahu and Obama, stemming from the U.S.-led nuclear negotiations with Iran. Now, of course, if you recall my opinion on that Iran nuclear deal, it isn't worth the paper it's printed on, folks. Now, I've heard they've released the secret side deals, which I am working on finding the original text documents of. All right, I think we have covered this. So do you have any last-minute comments you want to add, Dave?
What I will say is good luck to President Trump in carrying out the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem. I hope he can make it happen, and I hope he takes a hard line with Palestinians and maybe forces them to negotiate in good faith, and we can actually get a real settlement of something here. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the two-state solution has been around since 1947, and I'm not sure if anybody still wants it. Somebody needs to change what they're doing. Something's got to give.
All right. Well, on that note, folks, I'm out of here!